Originali.
La conclusione dell'anno 2022 la facciamo in compagnia di Lingue Originali e sempre con Lingue Originali ci accingiamo ad aprire il nuovo anno. Questa è la puntata del 30 dicembre ed è quella di Lingue Originali dedicata alla letteratura inglese. Come finisce l'anno, finisce il mese e finisce anche questo ciclo di 4 puntate nel corso del quale Marco Piovaz, lo ha fatto già 3 volte, conclude oggi, ci ha letto e ci legge Christmas Eve, una short story tratta da The Sketchbook di Washington Irving, una piccola raccolta di storie brevi che diede a Irving davvero una rilevante celebrità. Christmas Eve, delle short stories che compongono la raccolta, è quella con la quale Irving ha voluto spiegare agli americani, agli statunitensi, le tradizioni natalizie tipiche dell'Inghilterra. Quarto appuntamento, quarto estratto, l'ultimo del 2022 con Marco Piovaz, a cui cedo linea e microfono per Christmas Eve da The Sketchbook di Washington Irving.
The supper had disposed everyone to gaiety, and an old harper was summoned from the servants' hall, where he had been strumming all the evening, and to all appearance comforting himself with some of the squire's home brewed. He was a kind of hanger-on, I was told, of the establishment, and though ostensibly a resident of the village, was oftener to be found in the squire's kitchen than his own home, the old gentleman being fond of the sound of harp in hall. The dance, like most dances after supper, was a merry one. Some of the older folks joined in it, and the squire himself figured down several couple with a partner with whom he had affirmed he had danced at every Christmas for nearly half a century. Master Simon, who seemed to be a kind of connecting link between the old times and the new, and to be withal a little antiquated in the taste of his accomplishments, evidently piqued himself on his dancing, and was endeavouring to gain credit by the heel and toe, rigadoon, and other graces of the ancient school, but he had unluckily assorted himself with a little romping girl from boarding school, who by her wild vivacity kept him continually on the stretch, and defeated all his sober attempts at elegance. Such are the ill-sorted matches to which antique gentlemen are unfortunately prone. The young Oxonian, on the contrary, had let out one of his maiden aunts, on whom the rogue played 1,000 little knaveries with impunity. He was full of practical jokes, and his delight was to tease his aunts and cousins. Yet, like all madcap youngsters, he was a universal favourite among the women. The most interesting couple in the dance was the young officer and a ward of the squire's, a beautiful blushing girl of 17. From several shy glances which I had noticed in the course of the evening, I suspected there was a little kindness growing up between them, and indeed the young soldier was just the hero to captivate a romantic girl. He was tall, slender, and handsome, and like most young British officers of late years, had picked up various small accomplishments on the continent. He could talk French and Italian, draw landscapes, sing very tolerably, dance divinely, but above all, he had been wounded at Waterloo. What girl of 17, well read in poetry and romance, could resist such a mirror of chivalry and perfection? The moment the dance was over, he caught up a guitar and, lolling against the old marble fireplace, in an attitude which I am half inclined to suspect was studied, began the little French air of the troubadour. The squire, however, exclaimed against having anything on Christmas Eve but good old English. Upon which the young minstrel, casting up his eye for a moment, as if in an effort of memory, struck into another strain, and with a charming air of gallantry, gave Herrick's night piece to Julia. Her eyes the glow warm lend thee, the shooting stars attend thee, and the elves also, whose little eyes glow like the sparks of fire befriend thee. No will o' the wisp mislight thee, nor snake, nor slow worm bite thee, but on thy way, not making a stay, since ghost there is none to affright thee. Then let not the dark thee cumber. What though the moon does slumber? The stars of the night will lend thee their light, like tapers clear without number. Then, Julia, let me woo thee, thus to come unto me, and when I shall meet thy silvery feet, my soul I'll pour into thee. The song might or might not have been intended in compliment to the fair Julia, for so I found the partner was called. She, however, was certainly unconscious of any such application, for she never looked at the singer, but kept her eyes cast upon the floor. Her face was suffused, it is true, with a beautiful blush, and there was a gentle heaving of the bosom, but all that was doubtless caused by the exercise of the dance. Indeed, so great was her indifference that she amused herself with plucking to pieces a choice bouquet of hothouse flowers, and by the time the song was concluded, the nosegay lay in ruins on the floor. The party now broke up for the night, with the kind-hearted old custom of shaking hands. As I passed through the hall on my way to my chamber, the dying embers of the Yule clock still sent forth a dusky glow, and had it not been the season when no spirit dares stir abroad, I should have been half tempted to steal from my room at midnight and peep whether the fairies might not be at their revels about the hearth. My chamber was in the old part of the mansion, the ponderous furniture of which might have been fabricated in the days of the giants. The room was panelled with cornices of heavy carved work, in which flowers and grotesque faces were strangely intermingled, and a row of black-looking portraits stared mournfully at me from the walls. The bed was of rich, thought-faded damask, with a lofty tester, and stood in a niche opposite a bow window. I had scarcely got into bed when a strain of music seemed to break forth in the air just below the window. I listened and found it proceeded from a band which I concluded to be the waits from some neighbouring village. They went round the house, playing under the windows. I drew aside the curtains to hear them more distinctly. The moonbeams fell through the upper part of the casement, partially lighting up the antiquated apartment. The sounds, as they receded, became more soft and aerial, and seemed to accord with the quiet and moonlight. I listened and listened. They became more and more tender and remote, and as they gradually died away, my head sunk upon the pillow, and I fell asleep.
E così, per l'anno 2022, l'appuntamento dedicato alla letteratura in lingua inglese di Lingue Originali ci saluta. Ma non finisce qui. Continueremo, come consuetudine, fino al mese di giugno, con altre letture sempre a cura del nostro caro Marco Piovaz, che ringraziamo sempre e al quale, come a voi, facciamo gli auguri per una serena fine anno e un ancor più sereno 2023. Ne abbiamo bisogno tutti quanti. Io sono Dario Albertini. Vi ricordo che l'appuntamento dell'ultimo dell'anno, se avrete la bontà di seguirci, ci vedrà in compagnia di Nadia Meroni con la letteratura in lingua tedesca e ancora con me a fare da facilitatore all'ascolto, e poi apriremo il 2023 con Barbara Marchand nell'appuntamento dedicato alla letteratura in lingua francese. Grazie, ci sentiamo alla prossima puntata.
Lingue originali.